A man is invited to an exclusive upscale golf course by his boss. The place is spectacular. They enjoy a round of golf. And at the luxurious clubhouse, the boss says, with a smile, "Freshen up with a shower while I chat with my friends here. I'll meet you in the restaurant." The man heads in, takes a left towards the showers, and is just stepping out of a stall when he suddenly hears women's voices. He's in the ladies' section. He realizes that the men's section, along with his clothes, was actually right at the entrance, in clear view of the restaurant patrons. All he has is a towel, and he knows he'd be utterly embarrassed going to lunch if he's seen sprinting out of the women's area. It strikes him, cover his face, not his modesty, and maybe no one will recognize him. He bolts across the entryway to a chorus of gasps and giggles. "Well, he certainly wasn't my husband," exclaims one elegantly dressed lady. "Not mine either," agrees another. A few more women chime in, shaking their heads. Then a stunning young blonde stands up and declares with a smirk, "Why, he's not even a member of the club." 1. A man calls the police, upset that his house has been broken into and his toilet used. The owner says that nothing has been stolen, and the police officer finds no signs of forced entry. "Why exactly did you call the police?" he asks. The owner takes the officer into the bathroom and shows him the toilet bowl. "What do you see?" he asks. "A turd," says the officer. "Exactly," says the owner. "I didn't do it, my wife didn't do it, and my mother-in-law didn't do it. So I want an investigation." "I'm sorry," says the officer, beginning to leave. "I can't initiate an investigation with just a turd to go on." The owner is furious and follows the police officer into the street, shouting, "What about the turd?" "Keep it for 7 days," responds the officer. "And if nobody claims it, the thing is yours." 2. A man was thrilled to see that the local newspaper was once again hosting its much-anticipated annual joke contest. Readers from all over the region eagerly submitted their best jokes, with the top 5 proudly published for everyone to enjoy. The rules of the competition were straightforward. All jokes had to be entirely original and penned by the sender. The man was confident he had a winner with a joke he'd crafted, one that made him burst into laughter every time he recalled it. He carefully wrote down his joke, double-checked the spelling for any errors, and promptly mailed it to the newspaper. A few weeks later, the results were announced, and the man was stunned to discover that his joke hadn't made the list. He immediately called the newspaper and spoke with the lady who judged the entries. She informed him that she had never received his joke, but encouraged him to submit it again the next year. The next year came around, and the man, still hopeful, wrote down his joke once more and sent it in. Just like before, he didn't win and called the paper, only to learn that they had no record of his submission. This happened again the following year, and the year after that, until finally, the man decided to give up. Morale of the story: it doesn't matter how many times a joke is repeated, some people will never understand it. 3. So, my wife went missing, and I rushed to the police station to report her disappearance. The policeman asked, "What was she wearing?" I replied, "I really don't remember." The policeman then asked, "What is her height?" I replied, "Somewhere around average." The policeman asked, "What about her weight?" I replied, "Who can say?" The policeman asked, "Hair color?" I replied, "Depends on the season." The policeman finally asked, "Was she driving?" I replied, "Yes." The policeman asked, "What type of car?" I replied with enthusiasm, "A sleek black BMW with a supercharged V8 3.0-litre engine. It cranks out 333 horsepower and goes from 0 to 60 in just 5.6 seconds. It has an 8-speed automatic gearbox, full leather interior, top-of-the-line sat nav, keyless entry and ignition, low-profile alloy wheels, full service history, and, oh yeah, there's a tiny scratch on the driver's side door. For the first mate on a ship rarely drinks, but the crew threw him a party on his birthday and went out of their way to get him drunk. The next morning, he woke up with a hangover and went to the bridge. He opened the ship's log and found that the captain had written, "The first mate got drunk last night." He complained to the captain, saying that it was very rare. The captain defended his entry, saying that it was the truth, wasn't it? The next day, the captain opened the ship's log and the first mate had written, "The captain was able to stay sober last night." 5. 3 Jamaicans are excited to attend a dress-up party with an emotions theme. The entry policy is strict. No costume, no entry. The first guy knocks on the door, dressed as a huge pear. The host says, "This is an emotions party. What are you supposed to be?" He replies confidently, "I'm in despair," and strolls in. The second guy doesn't have a costume ready, so he simply throws on some of his sister's clothes and knocks on the door. The host asks, "And what emotion are you?" The guy responds, "I'm in distress," and walks in without hesitation. The third guy, having no costume and nothing to borrow, decides to improvise. He strips down, grabs a bowl, fills it with custard, and strategically places it over his privates. He knocks on the door. The host is stunned and clearly thinks this guy isn't getting in. The host says, "You're making a fool of yourself. You can't enter unless you're dressed as an emotion, and honestly, I'm disgusted." The third guy grins and says, "Yeah man, I'm this custard too." 6. An animal rescuer, homeless shelter director, volunteer pediatrician, and ice cream machine repairman are waiting at the pearly gates. The animal rescuer meets St. Peter, who reviews her resume of thousands of animals she's saved. Shaking his head, he announces, "Denied." Next is the homeless shelter director. St. Peter looks over his resume, nods slightly, but still announces, "Denied." The volunteer pediatrician, getting nervous, decides to let the ice cream machine repairman go next. St. Peter glances at his resume and without hesitation, "Granted." And the man walks through. Now very confused, the pediatrician said, "How is it that a woman who dedicates her life to saving defenseless animals and a man who has helped the lives of tens of thousands of people are both denied entry into heaven, but a regular old ice cream machine repairman gets in?" "Simple," explained St. Peter. "We have a McDonald's." 7. John is arrested for breaking windows, declared insane, and sent to an asylum. Upon entry, they ask him, "What do you want to do?" He replies eagerly, "I want to smash all your windows." After a month, they try again, but get the same response. Another 6 months pass, and still all he will say is, "I want to smash all your windows." So they decide to try something different. They bring in a female psychologist. After a month, they interview him once more. "What do you want to do now?" they ask. John replies, "I want to find a woman." This sounds promising. They ask, "And then what?" "I want to take her to that barn across the road and undress her," he says. They're thrilled. They've finally made progress. "And then what?" they ask eagerly. He grins and says, "Then I'm gonna take her bra and make the biggest slingshot you've ever seen, and break all your fucking windows." 8. A rich man was strolling along a riverside with his 6-year-old daughter, and they came to a bridge. On the bridge, there was a hobo sitting and shaking his cup. As they were walking past, the rich man wasn't keeping an eye on his daughter, who was playing with the bars of the railing, and she slipped through and fell in. Not knowing how to swim himself, the man shouted for help. Without saying a word, the hobo got up, took off his clothes, and dove in. Grabbing hold of the little girl, he swam ashore to her father. "Oh my goodness, thank you so much. I couldn't help but notice that you dive beautifully. I will reward you with $500 if you can do that again." Without saying a word, the hobo got back onto the bridge and did it again, this time managing to flip 4 times with another perfect entry. Astounded, the man says, "I'll double my price if you do it again." Again, the hobo climbed onto the bridge, dove off, and had a perfect entry. Not one ripple across the water. The rich man paid the hobo and said, "Look, I'm pretty rich. I recently bought a cruise ship, and I'm looking for attractions. How would you like to come work for me and show the world your skills? How about we go for a world record for highest dive while we're at it? I'll give you 50% of all I own if you dive off the world's tallest diving platform like you did today." The homeless man agreed, and he was allowed to live on the ship while the diving platform was being constructed. When construction began, the platform climbed high into the sky, past the atmosphere, into space. It went past Mars, past Jupiter, slowly got built, past Saturn, Neptune, and finally stopped at Pluto. When it was finished, the hobo began his climb. By now, the boat was at max capacity, and a large crowd had gathered to watch the spectacle. TV cameras televised the event. A whole campaign of cheering people were following this story. The hobo took a minute's rest after the climb and dove off. He began flying down towards the earth, perfect flip after flip. He entered the atmosphere and began to straighten himself for entry into the pool aboard the ship. He dove in again. Not a single ripple made its way across the pool surface. However, as you would have guessed, the pool was much too shallow, and he continued to go deeper. He dove past the bedrooms, past the cabin crew level, the engine, and through the hull. The ship began to sink, and everyone panicked. As the ship was going under, the rich man swam over to the hobo. Too amazed to lament his cruise ship, he asked, "How on earth did you do that? You're completely unscathed. The entry was perfect. You obliterated the ship." After a moment's silence, the hobo finally spoke. "I'm a hobo. I've been through many hardships in my life." 9. A wife goes on a retreat for work for a few days. When she returns and enters the house, she puts her things away and then goes to do some much-needed laundry. Upon her entry to the room, however, she finds a pair of panties on the floor that do not belong to her. Furious, she questions her husband. The husband says, "I have no idea where they came from. I don't do the laundry. The maid does." The wife calms down and says, "Oh, so maybe these belong to the maid. Could be she was doing her laundry here." "Nah," said the husband musingly. "She doesn't even wear panties." 10. A man tells his wife that he's going golfing. She gets upset because she thought they would spend the day together. Husband: "Honey, I really need a day to relieve some stress. Besides, you don't even golf." Wife: "I want to learn, and it's something we can do together." The husband reluctantly agrees, and they head to the golf course. On the first tee, the husband drives the ball 300 yards, dead center. The wife tries her hand at it and slices the ball straight into a massive window of a mansion on the side of the course. Husband: "Ah, damn. All right, let's go pay for this window." The couple arrives at the front door of the house with the broken window and rings the doorbell. A very well-dressed man answers the door. "Yees!" Husband: "Hi, we're the ones who broke the window. Are you the owner of the house?" Well-dressed man: "Oh no, I'm just the butler. The master is in the other room. Follow me." The couple follows the butler through the grand entryway into a magnificent library where the master sits, staring intently at a shattered vase, clearly broken by the golf ball. Husband: "Oh, I'm so sorry. My wife is just learning golf and she didn't mean to." The master interrupts with a chuckle. "Ha ha ha, it's quite all right. You see, I'm a genie, and I was trapped in that vase for the last several hundred years. But you released me by breaking it. As you know, genies grant 3 wishes. But since you did break the window, I'll keep the 3rd wish for myself and grant 1 each to both of you. Madame, would you like to go first?" Wife: I want lots of money." "Done," interrupts the master. "I'll also make it theft-proof, fireproof, and infinite. Anytime you need money, no matter the amount, it will be in your account." Wife: "Oh my goodness, thank you so much." "Your turn," says the master, looking at the husband. Husband: "I'd like a beautiful home in every country." Master: "And you shall have it, complete with protection from all the elements and a staff to maintain it and look after you when you stay." Husband: "Thank you so much." Master: "Not a problem. As for my wish, well, I've been trapped in that vase for so long, all the while without a woman. I'm sorry, but my wish is to have sex with your beautiful wife." Husband to wife: "I don't know, honey. I mean, he did give us all that money and those houses. You know how I feel about cheating, but this seems different." Wife: "Yeah, I agree. I'm not thrilled about it, but I understand where he's coming from. Okay, we'll do it." The master is thrilled and wicks the wife upstairs where they have loud, wall-banging for hours on end. Finally, after all that time, the master comes downstairs, wearing only his underwear and an unbuttoned dress shirt. He grabs a cup of water and drinks it all. The master then asks the husband nearby, "If you don't mind me asking, how old are you and your wife?" Husband: "Well, I'm 32 and she's 34. Why do you ask?" Master: "Just curious as to how you guys still believe in genies." 11. A new Navy recruit has his first day on the submarine. He speaks with the officer, who assigns him his post. Go stand at the periscope, entryway, and make sure no unauthorized personnel touch the periscope. The recruit follows orders and stands by the periscope. After 15 minutes, the officer stops by. Son, I'm changing your post to the mess hall. Go in there and start washing some dishes. The recruit obeys and heads to the mess hall. He's cleaned about 3 dishes when the officer walks up again. Listen here, recruit. Your new post is in the supply room. I need you to make sure everything is strapped down tight in case of rough waters. The recruit again follows orders and heads off to the supply room. There he sees a crewman moving some boxes. Hey there, says the recruit. Is it normal to keep getting reassigned to new posts all day? I haven't kept one position for more than 15 minutes. The crewman says, oh yeah, this sub is full of reposts. 12. A priest is running late for an appointment. So he asks the altar boy to help him with the confessions. If someone comes for a confession, go to the confessional and pretend to be me. When they tell you their sin, look it up on this reference book and tell them their penance. Now that the altar boy is in charge, a girl comes to confess. He goes to the confessional as instructed and pretends to be the father. The girl starts confessing. Father, I've sinned. The other day in my house, I was alone with my boyfriend and we started kissing. Things got out of hand and I ended up giving him a job. The kid starts looking in the book The Penance. He checks the book over and over, but cannot find anything about jobs. So he quietly gets out of the confessional and goes looking for another altar boy. Finally, he finds one and asks, Dude, you gotta help me. What does the priest do for jobs? I don't know about you, man, but me, he pays me 5s. 13. An 80-year-old man arrives at his doctor's appointment. He sits down and the doctor begins his usual routine. Doctor: So, how have things been lately? Man: Pretty good. I married a 20-year-old last week. The doctor is somewhat taken aback by this revelation, but maintains his professionalism. Doctor: That sounds interesting. Are you here because you're having issues with your stamina? Man: Actually, no. Even at my age, I'm still able to perform 3 times a day. Doctor: All right, you're certainly vigorous. Do you have any concerns about birth control? Man: Nope, she's on the pill, so I'm not worried. Doctor: I understand. Well, I have many patients waiting and limited time today. Could you tell me what your main concern is? The man stands up, places his hand on the doctor's shoulder, and says with a grin, Well, there's no real problem. But if you were an old man like me and were having with a 20-year-old 3 times a night, wouldn't you want to brag about it to as many people as you could? 14. A woman is strolling through the park when she spots a very attractive man sitting on a park bench. He's engrossed in a book and munching on some fruit from a Tupperware container. Mustering up her courage, she decides to ask the man out. She approaches him, takes a seat next to him on the bench, and says, Sorry to interrupt. I know this might be a bit forward, but I'd love to grab coffee with you sometime. Flattered, the man replies, Sure. But what makes you so sure that we'd get along so well. Well, the woman begins. A few things, actually. I noticed you're wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt. Iron Maiden is my all-time favorite band. When they went on their reunion tour in 1999, my parents took me to see them in Cleveland. I was 12 years old, and it was the very first concert I ever attended. I absolutely adore Iron Maiden. The man is astonished. I saw them in Cleveland in '99 too. It was the first concert I ever went to on my own. My best friend Jimmy Spitz and I told our parents we were sleeping over at each other's houses, snuck out, took a bus into the city, and saw them play at the Plain Dealer Pavilion. Naturally, they're both amazed. If that's not uncanny enough, says the woman. I noticed you're reading Mark Twain. I majored in communications at university and wrote my thesis on Mark Twain and how he used satire to comment on contemporary events, comparing him to modern satirical news. He's my favorite author. The man is truly taken aback. No way! I was an English major, specializing in 19th century American literature. This is like my 4th or 5th time reading Tom Sawyer. I absolutely love Mark Twain. They both can't believe it. All right, the woman says. Here's the cherry on top. I noticed you're eating a prune. Prunes are my all-time favorite fruit. When I was a kid, my grandfather lived on a farm with an orchard that mostly had apples and lemons. But he knew how much my sister and I loved prunes, so he kept a few plum trees. Every summer we'd harvest the plums with him. He'd dry them, and by Thanksgiving, he'd always have those prunes saved just for us. They're my favorite fruit. I love prunes. You're eating a prune. This has to be fate. What do you say? The man sets down his fruit and replies with a smile. It's a date. 15. A 17-year-old boy who works part-time at Pizza Hut drives up to park in front of the house in a beautiful Porsche. Naturally, his parents know that there's no way he earned enough with his after-school job to buy such a car. Where did you get that car? His mom and dad screamed in shock. I bought it today, replied the teen calmly. With what money, young man? His mom demands. We know how much a Porsche costs and you cannot afford it. Well, it's used and I got a good deal, says the boy. This one cost me $20. Who on earth would sell a car like that for $20? The woman up the street, the boy replies. I don't know her name. She just moved in. She ordered a pizza, and when I delivered it to her, she asked me if I wanted to buy a Porsche for $20. The boy's dad and mom hurry over to their new neighbor's house, ready to demand an explanation. Curiously, their new neighbor is calmly planting flowers in her front yard. I'm the father of the kid you just sold a sports car to for $20, the dad says. I need an explanation from you. Well, the woman says, not looking up from her garden. This morning I got a phone call from my husband. I thought he was on a business trip in Florida, but it seems he has run off to Hawaii with his secretary and doesn't intend to come back. What on earth does that have to do with selling our son a Porsche for $20? The boy's mom asks, utterly perplexed. The new neighbor smiles very big and pauses for a minute. Well, my husband asked me to sell his new Porsche and send him the money. So I did. A police officer spots a car parked in a popular makeout spot late one night and decides to investigate. He sees a young man behind the wheel, reading a newspaper, and a young woman in the passenger seat knitting. This is a puzzling sight, so he decides to find out more about these individuals. "How old are you?" he asks the guy. "21, officer," he replies. "What about you?" he asks the girl. She looks at her watch. "In about 10 minutes, I'll be 18.